Hello and welcome, casters. My name is Turmentic, and today we are going to be doing something a little different than what I normally do on the channel. One of the big questions that I keep seeing with the community, one of the biggest responses I got from the last video I made going over the interview with Charlie Hurlocker and Nick, which if you haven't seen that yet, definitely go and check out that video. I'll leave a link down in the description. But that question has been, what are my cards worth? What are they going to be worth? What is up with the old MetaZoo cards in regards to the new MetaZoo that's actually coming out Q1 of 2025. And so I thought it would be fun to kind of theorize a little bit about exactly where those cards are headed, where we are right now in relation to how valuable they are, tradability wise, things like that, and kind of actually look at some trends that we've actually seen over the last year. So buckle up, because like I said, this is a new type of video, and here we go. The first thing I actually want to talk about is addressing everybody thinking that the old cards basically kind of don't serve any purpose now that MetaZoo's coming out with a, in their words, quote, brand new TCG. I very, very adamantly disagree with that sentiment. And that is because I am very partial to the old cards and things like that. We don't really have a lot of specifics on how gameplay is going to work with the new card game, the new style for the cards, like if they're going to be stylized with attack and defense, things like that, the trades. We don't know anything about the new MetaZoo cards. So this is strictly just going to be about all of the older cards that we actually have. And to be honest with you, if you go and actually look at some eBay solds, those cards are actually selling higher now than they had been over the last couple months. The big takeaway though from this is that there haven't been any new cards for MetaZoo released since about this time roughly last year, where we had the Black Friday promos, we had Disclosure 2.0, things like that. That was the last physical cards that we actually saw, that we were able to open, things like that. And so a lot of these cards, since MetaZoo went under originally in January, they lost a lot of their value. But it's crazy to me that a company that before 2 months ago, that had no prospect really of moving forward, there was nobody at the helm, it was going through a full bankruptcy, some of those cards actually maintained value. Some of it, and I'm talking like a couple $1,000s worth of value when you actually get to like the Kickstarter cards, like with Mothman, stuff like that. Some of the harder ones to actually get from Cryptid Nation. But if you actually go and look at trends, you can see how some of these values have gone up over the last couple months. You can see how they bottomed out and then came back up. Same thing with booster boxes. Booster boxes, specific sets though, were tanked. They went way down. But now they're starting to come back up. Nightfall is a really good example of what I'm talking about. So what prompted this video, honestly, was I was watching some samples that were being sold on eBay, and some of them had a lot of bids, but it was one particular card, and it was a PSA 5 Mothman sample card that sold for a little over $4,000. Now, that is a fraction of what it was worth originally, but the fact that that card still sold for $4K blew me away, especially since it was a PSA 5. I mean, so I know there are some 8s, I know there's some 10s out there, so that just got me really wondering, like, how valuable actually is some of this stuff still? So the first thing I want to actually establish are print runs of the original sets. Now, these are based off of what we were told by Mike and old MetaZoo, so taken with a grain of salt. But these are the original print runs for the first couple sets. The sample cards, supposedly there are only 100 of each of them. They were hand packaged, sent out to people, sent out to organizations, given away at different cons, things like that. The next one would be Kickstarter. And in theory, there's only supposed to be like 2,500 of each SKU, because Cryptid Nation First Edition is in essence a reprint of the Kickstarter, and it was 10 times the print run. So keeping that in mind about the supposed print runs, let's go over a little bit of the history or the numbers when it comes to the MetaZoo community. When it first started out, it was probably a couple dozen, maybe to 100 people. Up until the Kickstarter went live, there was a lot of hype with that. And then I want to say it probably jumped up to maybe about 1,000 to 2,000 people. It wasn't really, in my opinion, until the peak, which would have been, I want to say, right after Nightfall, right before Wilderness and Cryptic Nation 2nd Edition came out. That's when MetaZoo kind of really was on that really high trajectory with people entering the community, getting interested in the cards, things of that nature. And in all honesty, when MetaZoo peaked, which might have been sometime in 2022, like before the first half of 2022, I want to honestly say that there were probably only like maybe 15 to 20,000 people in the community. Which seems like a lot, which is a lot when you come to when you're talking about an indie TCG, because that's what it was at that point. But there weren't a ton of people in the community, and like honestly, that might be kind of generous even on the number of people that were in the community. I'd say probably about between 15 to 20,000, and we're talking hardcore fans, people who collected, people who played, people who made content, LGSs that carried the product, all sorts of different things as part of that community. Now, MetaZoo kind of, in my opinion, started losing people after that, and I want to say that probably by the time we get to May of 2024, about 4 or 5 months after the bankruptcy, after the cessation of the business proper, the community was maybe somewhere between 500 to maybe 1,000 people. Now, even that 500 to 1,000 people is still huge, in my opinion, when it comes to a community that does not see any sort of way of getting new product, does not see any sort of way of continuing, moving forward, things like that. So 500 to 1,000 people is still pretty big. Everyone still loved the cards. Everyone was still in love with the product itself. Even when MetaZoo wasn't operating, there were more people that I've heard from LGSs, other stuff like that, who picked up product after MetaZoo stopped operating that had never seen it or never even given it a shot before. You can say that maybe a part of the reason why they jumped on the product, though, was because of how drastically prices fell once the bankruptcy happened. I mean, you can still, I'm pretty much sure, buy Cryptic Nation 2 booster boxes for like $15-20. At one point, you had Wilderness and Seance booster boxes that were going for like $10 to $20. Native boxes got down to about $40 to $50. Cryptic Nation First Edition boxes even hit $100 during this last year once MetaZoo stopped operating. But then I noticed something right around, I want to say June, July, that prices started ticking up, and it was slow, and it's still a slow process. But if you compare the prices to what they are now versus 6 months ago, you'll see a drastic difference in how those prices have actually come up. I'm talking about the sample cards, which not all of those were holographic, but there were only supposedly 100 of each of those made, meaning that even in the heyday of our community, when we had 15 to 20,000 people, only 100 people could, in essence, create that entire sample set. Now, that's not a lot of people for how small that the community was originally. Now, imagine if the community was 100,000 people. Imagine if the community got up to 500,000 people, and there are only 100 sample moths in existence. I firmly believe that a lot of the older original product, the sample cards, Kickstarter, Cryptic Nation First Edition, even Nightfall, those cards are actually going to be sought after when MetaZoo's community explodes in 2025. And the reason why I say when MetaZoo's community explodes in 2025 is because you have to remember who Charlie is, what his plans for MetaZoo are, and the partnership that they actually have with GameCubator. You have people who it isn't. So one of the big things that the old MetaZoo admin tried to do is they always tried to break in to the TCG world. They always tried to break into that scene, whether they were trying to talk to somebody over in Magic, or they were trying to talk to other indie card games, or they were trying to get connected with Collecticon. The thing though that people have to realize is that the people who are working for GameCubator, the ones that are helping MetaZoo, they don't have to break in to that field. They don't have to break in to get connections with those companies. They already have them. Some of them have worked for those companies that they're trying to model this after now. So it isn't a sense of having to, make it or break it. They're there. They can literally inject themselves into that market, into that world, because most of them come from it. And these people are helping MetaZoo move forward. They're helping them. I don't even know exactly what their plans are in regards to MetaZoo, but the fact that they are linked with MetaZoo speaks of volumes to me. Gives me so much confidence that MetaZoo knows where it's going now. They know what they have to do in order to actually sell a successful product. So again, imagine August of 2025, the first product that MetaZoo actually had released in the end of Q1 exploded. It had a relatively small print run in comparison to the other big TCGs, but it still had a decent print run that was actually pushed out. So you have all of these people scrambling trying to actually get this product because of the names that are attached to it. And again, the community goes from 1,500 people to 20,000 people to 50,000 people to 100,000 people, which those are still relatively small, very small actually, in comparison to like the Pokemon community or the Magic the Gathering community or even the Yu-Gi-Oh community. So you have exponentially more people interested in the product, interested in MetaZoo. Of course, you're going to have people who immediately just want to collect it because it's cryptids. You're going to have people who want to try to play it because it's another TCG they can play. At the end of the day, though, those people in those community are going to realize that there's so many more cards that came before that first initial new base set. The other big thing is people are like, oh, well, the cards are going to be useless because they're completely redoing the format. They're changing how the mechanics work and this and that. And they haven't come right out and said that, but that is the general consensus, that they are actually going to try to fix or tweak the game, which that will be a different video. I'd love to actually theorize on exactly what they might change, how they're going to change it, things like that. But at the end of the day, we don't know if we're going to lose all support of RetroZoo. We don't. And it would be amazing to me if they would actually have tournaments of some sort, even if they were only at like Collecticons or whatnot, have that. There's so many people that actually miss playing the old game that I can see them actually having a little bit of a market of trying to actually schedule a couple tournaments throughout the year, spread out around the country. But that's the other thing too, though, is that MetaZoo isn't going to be mostly localized to the United States. Charlie was very vocal about how they want to make this an actual worldwide company, that with the new base set coming out Q1 of next year, it is going to be a worldwide release. So that means that there are going to be tons of countries that are going to be introduced to MetaZoo for the first time, not knowing that there are the old retro cards, not knowing what came before the base set that's going to be released next year. So truly, in my heart of hearts, I feel there is going to be some sort of gameplay that the old cards can be used for. Like I said, my big suggestion would have like some sort of RetroZoo tournaments at Collecticons or other smaller cons or things like that. They could even have a tournament if they wanted to that was focused completely on RetroZoo at something that they came up with, their own style of event. And to be honest with you, I know people that would actually go to play in those. And besides the actual RetroZoo gameplay aspect of why I think the cards will actually maintain some value, they're the originals. They're the original cards that were made before this new base set comes out. So when this new base set comes out and it blows people away and we get quadruple, 10 times the amount of people that we've ever had in the MetaZoo community into the community, there are going to be collectors that actually want some of these OG cards. There's going to be people who like go after specific older retro cards. Now, the thing is, and I will preface this, I don't think all of the cards will actually maintain or go up crazy in value. But even looking at Pokemon, even looking at base set Pokemon, they all didn't skyrocket either too. So like, for example, the orbs from UFO, I don't see them actually skyrocketing in value. The Mothman, though, from Nightfall, 100%. The Headless Horseman from Nightfall, I could see that one too. Indrid Cold from Nightfall, of course. Bigfoot from Wilderness, I could see that one actually being big. Dragon of Okanto too, especially since it was the first Dragon of Okanto artwork that was actually done. 100% I can actually see that one going up. So I don't think all of the cards across the board will, like I said. Terra Orbs being a really good example, I don't think the orbs will actually increase in value. Saying that though, there are hundreds of cards from the sets that I can actually see maintaining value and going up over time. Now granted, it might take us anywhere from 2 to 5 years before we see any sort of substantial, huge growth. Saying that even, using Pokemon again as an example, Pokemon cards themselves were dirt cheap from like 2010 to 2013, 2014. Like some of the older cards were dirt cheap. Boxes were dirt cheap. And then there was a huge big revival of Pokemon, and we are where we are today with that. So I can see some of this stuff maintaining, dipping down, coming back up, dipping down a little bit over the years. But again, Charlie's idea when it comes to MetaZoo isn't a cash grab. It isn't just, oh, get in real quick, make some money, get out. This is, he's literally speaking the same language I have been for the last 2 years about longevity of the franchise. MetaZoo, he hopes, I hope, will outlast us. It will go well into the future, well after I am no longer here. And that's the beauty of it. So I firmly believe that the cards, most of them, will actually increase or maintain value over the years. So just quick recap. The original question was, what will my cards be worth? And casters, I gotta tell you, the majority of them, some of the really sought after ones, I feel, are going to maintain value and go up. And that's going to be because of the scarcity of them once we get into big, large print runs, once the community actually explodes after the base set comes out next year in 2025. And the collectability that people actually would want with some of these original cards. I see them maintaining, if not going up. Now, I will preface this again, saying that it will take us probably somewhere anywhere from a year or 2 to 5, 10 years to actually see substantial growth and value of these cards. The other big thing to keep in mind too is that we don't know if there will be any support for Retro Zoo moving forward once the new base set comes out. We know that there'll be, in essence, kind of, I guess, 2 separate formats, but we don't know if the new company is actually going to give us any sort of support for those. So until they come out and say, no, we're not doing anything with it, I wouldn't write it off. And it's because of that, like I said, I feel the cards are actually still going to be worth something. Like I said, this video was going to be a little different than the stuff that I usually make, but my name is Turmentic. Thanks so much for checking this out. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think actually the cards might be worth here in the future. Do you think they'll actually maintain value? Do you think they'll go down? Do you actually think that people will want these older retro cards once the new Zoo comes out? Like I said, leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts, and as always, I hope you have a wonderful day.